This is Michael Kaplan from the American Guitar Academy, and we have the honor of being backstage at the Blue Note with Simon Phillips.
Hello.
Thank you very much, man, for taking the time. If it's okay with you, we're going to skip the biographical stuff because there's the internet and everybody can read about that on their own.
Operate a computer.
So hopefully we have a little more musical-oriented questions. The first one being, if I can consult my phone, when you're putting together a project of your own, what are you looking for in musicians? And or is there hesitation in hiring either younger musicians or new musicians you've never played with before?
Very good question. So first is the music, but I've always found that I like to know the musicians that I'm writing for.
Okay.
Because I like to kind of know their tendencies, their style, what they're really good at playing. That it just helps in the writing process. But if that's not available, which it has been a couple of times when I've had to form a new band for whatever reason, I'll then just start writing material.
With no musicians in mind.
I do all my writing with I'm not trained at all. I never went to school, music school, because basically we didn't have any. In London in the 70s, early 70s, all you had was the Royal Academy of Music that I was aware of. And you have to play 2 musical instruments to get in there.
Oh.
Yeah,
really?
Drums wasn't considered a musical instrument.
Really? Wow.
So, but also, I was playing professionally from 12 years old,
right.
And I went straight into
working
theatre, working sessions. So I never had time to even go to school,
right.
Which is it's a bit of a shame because I have no idea what key I'm writing in. I mean, literally, it's all ear. It's all ear. And that's what I do, and thanks to the help of a sequencer, which I've been writing with for many years, and now of course computer sequencer, and that's how I put it together. That's how I put all the music together.
And then you, when looking for the musicians to record with you or to go on tour with you.
So when it was time to form a new band, which was basically the beginning of the kind of protocol era. I had 2 musicians that I worked with before. One was Andy Timmons, guitar player. One was Steve Weingart. My previous band, going back to the 90s, Andy was in, and a keyboard player called Jeff Babco.
Okay. And
various bass players. But when we started putting like the Protocol 2 project together, so I called Andy. He said, yeah, I'd love to. I called Steve, and then I called a bass player called Melvin Lee Davis. He was in the last incarnation of the solo project, whatever. But he was able to make the recording, but one requirement was you've got to be available in September and October to do a tour.
Right.
I want the same band.
Right.
And Melvin couldn't commit to it because he'd just become Shaka Khan's MD. So Steve Weingart mentioned Ernest, and I couldn't remember playing with Ernest, but apparently we did. And I just said, okay, fine, let's just go with him. We started recording, and Ernest was absolutely fantastic. So Ernest has been in the band all this time, since 2013 to present day. 2016 was the last year, no, was it before then? No, 2016. When that band was kind of, we'd had enough of each other. I think it's the best way to put it. I had just moved to Ojai, and no, that was before I moved to Ojai. It was time to do the next record, Protocol 4. So, and I'd lost my guitarist and keyboard player. So I called Greg Howe. We had played together with Eddie Jobson on a very short tour, and I remember thinking, wow, this guy's great. I just called him, and that was it. And he was absolutely fantastic. And I also called someone that had auditioned before for another tour, but didn't happen. That was Dennis Ham. So that came together. And you know, there's a certain amount of adapting to do. You get used to working with, you know, two people that you know quite well, and then suddenly you change. So it's like, okay, all right, well, let's just go with it, you know. And I think the key there is when you compose music, especially in the jazz rock vein, you've got to be prepared to kind of let go of the composition. I make very specific demos.
Right.
I've actually released some of my demos on a box set. There's often not much change between the demo and the final thing, except of course all the soloing, because that I can't do. You know? So there's like, you know, 24 bars of just chord changes and a bass line. You know,
And on the demo, right?
on the demo, yeah. It's quite boring. But you know, with that, there's also every lead instrument player will then play a melody their way, and like Jeff Beck, for example, like Scott Henderson, Andy Timmons, you know. So it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I think it's a lesson I learned from Pete Townsend. He makes very detailed and incredible demos, but when it's time to record the record, he gets a producer, and I've heard him say to Chris Thomas, "You're my producer. I'm paying you. You produce the damn record. What do you want me to do? I'm ready. 12 string, you know." And it's amazing to see him kind of be produced. He's very happy to be in that scenario.
To have somebody guiding him in a certain direction.
Because, you know, you don't know everything. You know, you've written the music, but in a way that's kind of like a blueprint. And I get a copyist, he does charts, so it's easy for everybody to kind of, you know, what chords are these and what are these runs? Oh, right, okay. But then you have to be ready to just kind of let go.
That was actually one of my other questions that I had, was when you have a composition, musicians come in, how much freedom do they have to, you know, not the solos, because those are obviously ad lib, and but how much freedom do they have with the chord changes, or to change a little bit of the feel's obviously going to be different because different players. But
I mean, I think the biggest change is melody, but because of my experience of writing for Jeff Beck and on There and Back, I was used to that. It's like writing for a horn player. You know, it's their instrument. They're going to know the best way to play that melody. I mean, Jeff would spend ages on a melody, literally ages. You know this because you're a guitar player. There's so many different ways to play the same thing, and they sound different depending where you are.
And the way Jeff played
And he would play. You know, he used to thumb over the top, and he would play a melody, and he'd try it down here, and then he'd pick up something, and try it with a slide. And, I mean, it was amazing to watch Jeff come up with this, and he basically would figure out probably the best way you could ever play a melody, which is the way Jeff played it, you know. And that's kind of, so my approach to guitar was really formed by working with Jeff. So when I work with other guitarists, I let them figure out the way to do it. They get my demos, and Greg was amazing. He said, "This is amazing. This your demos they're so guitar
friendly, they're ready to go."
I know, and I still don't know which keys are the best keys for a guitar. Actually, you know, or the horn. I just kind of do it what feels right. The only thing I have a rule, and it's the bass. If I'm starting to write something and I just blurt it out, I don't even care what key it's in. I just get it out.
And
it's usually an E flat.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. If I sing a melody, it's generally
your body's tuned to E flat.
It's so weird. Wow. Yeah. So, and I'll do this, and then I'll find that the bass line is dropping below the B. And I go, that's not good.
Right.
Because I don't want them being up too high here. So then I'll transpose the whole thing to make it sound good on the bass. That's my kind of little rule of thumb.
And hearing it in a different key, it doesn't bother. You're okay. I mean, it's
okay. I do the same.
Let me.
No, actually, having said that, it's really important, especially for guitar. Actually, any instrument, tenor, alto, it's really important that the bulk of the melody is not having to be like, you know, some open strings would be lovely, you know, I think for the player. And the way it sounds too, it's got to sound a certain way. And I think I've just been incredibly lucky that because I ask, once we get into this, send the demos out, send the charts. I go, I'll call Alex. So Alex, how's this sitting on the fretboard? He said, great, fine. And with Greg, same thing. I've just been incredibly lucky because that's luck.
I'm sure Andy the same. I mean,
It's
they're all.
So that's kind of where it goes, and I let the player then make it become theirs. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And if I've got something to say, I'll say
Sure.
it, especially tone. But that to me is very important, that the tone's got to be right. And I tend to be from more of a rock background, so my melodies it's got to sing.
Yeah.
It's really got to sing, and the way his amp speaker and the way I'm miking it up and recording it, it's got to just sound convincing. Same with the horn.
Sure.
It's got to sound right, and
It has to be,
flat
like you said, it has to be
Yeah.
convincing.
Yeah.
What would you say would be something that a musician should absolutely not do? I know that's a very strange. I should be asking you what they should do as opposed to what they should not do. But there's plenty of guys that, maybe do something wrong in the studio, do something wrong on tour, whether it's musically or behaviorally.
I think when dealing with a younger musician, and I've obviously been through this experience myself, there's a tendency to overplay, and probably some of the stuff I might point out is okay. Let's now simplify this a little.
Just lay back a bit.
Yeah,
And calm down.
let's just leave some space. Those rests are just as important as the notes.
Absolutely.
And I think that just comes with maturity.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
learn to play.
nerves.
Yeah. Well, there's that, but you learn to just play less anyway, because it's. I look at it from a recording point of view. Is it sounding good?
Right.
If you try to cram too much in, it doesn't sound good. Simple,
And as a guitarist, myself, if you're hired as a side, any of the guitarists you mentioned, you're hired to play in your project.
Yeah.
They're the side guy, and you have to play to the tune or to the.
Always play the music.
Yeah. You got to play.
Yeah.
You got to play the chart. You got to play.
Yeah.
It's better, like you said, just to listen a bit and play less, perhaps.
Definitely.
Overplaying can really kill it.
It's an issue with drummers a lot.
Really.
Drummers tend to, I like to say that they get too frilly, they get too fancy. This just needs a straightforward groove.
Just needs a.
Don't get too fancy.
Right. Keep it simple.
And it's one of the things in my playing I don't think I do a lot of. I hear a lot of drummers are playing all this hi-hat stuff and I'm going, it's not drum clinic. It's just, let's just play the tune. And I think that just comes from doing many rock sessions.
Just
groove sessions,
straight
funk sessions,
right.
yeah. In the 70s, that's what we would do. We were always asked to play simpler. That's it.
So for the funk song, of course,
Yeah.
just on the wall.
Yeah, and that gets him inbuilt. So I always make sure that people are not getting too busy with stuff, which is kind of a little bit of a, if you can use the right word, oxymoron, because the music is complex.
Because the melodies are right.
Yeah, I mean, my music is not simple.
Right.
Harmonically, it's fairly intense, but melodically and some of the lines and stuff, I love Indian music, so I do use a lot of the Indian kind of scales and lines. And
rhythms as well? Rhythms as well? Some of the...
Rhythm in terms of note grouping.
Groupings, okay.
Yeah, so the kind of the conico thing. A lot. Yeah, there's one song we play in the second set called Jagannath, which is again an Indian word. It has a very typical kind of very McLaughlin type run. Those typical Indian runs. Going over the bar line stuff. Yeah. So, but it's very important to play complex music simply.
Which is not easy to do.
No, it's an oxymoron.
It's like
right?
it's like practicing improvisation.
Yeah, right. Well,
which we have to do, but
we do have to do. Yeah.
What do you think is the balance? Is there a balance between, for example, technique on whatever instrument you're playing, technique with, let's say, passion, and maybe songwriting, and there has to be some kind of balance. You can't have all technique, right?
No.
You probably can have all feel, maybe, but
Yeah.
that's probably significantly better than all technique. But
Yeah,
there's got to be a balance, right, between, because technique is great, but you have to also be able to deliver a message in a way that reaches other musicians and the audience.
Well,
So there's gotta be some kind of balance of it.
facility is a great thing to have,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that people don't like listening to Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right, or whoever, right, exactly,
Right?
right.
I mean,
Absolutely, of course.
It's,
of course.
there's a beauty in simplicity.
Yeah.
And that goes for a style of music too.
Absolutely.
There's certain musics. Again, it's just being attentive to the style that you're playing.
Certain
And
music.
that really only comes with experience. Experience of playing all these different types of music.
Right.
You just have to go song by song. In fact, I even do that on on one album. There are 10 songs or 9 songs or 8
Right.
songs, but they're all slightly different,
Right.
and they all need a little bit of. There's a different stylistically.
They have to be approached
between-
differently.
Yeah.
And they're all a conglomeration of all your experience
Yeah.
and all of the different types of music and the different people that you've played with.
Absolutely, yeah,
And-
yeah. I mean, even now, I'll if I'm playing on another, actually, even sometimes my own music, I will. What's the word I'm looking for? Channel a certain musician
Oh, okay.
or a certain style.
So like I'm whoever,
Yeah.
I'm Bernard Purdie.
I was just thinking of
and just think
we
of
actually
that.
played a little bit of one of the CD Dan tunes.
Oh, yeah.
Of Asia. No, of Gaucho.
So you just kind of try to
Babylon
think.
Sisters.
All right.
We just played a little
Just
bit.
try
So,
to think how that
yeah,
person.
I would often on sessions go, how would Bernard play this?
Interesting.
How would Ian Pace play this?
Interesting. And it gives you a different perspective.
It
for
does.
Sure, for sure.
And often I used to cross-pollinize.
Purposely?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So, for example, if I was doing like a heavy metal session back in the 70s, back then, most heavy metal drummers, well, I mean, we didn't even call it heavy metal,
Right.
most heavy rock drummers, the groove wasn't great. Ian Pace, great groove.
Yeah.
Carmine,
Of course, yeah.
great groove. Cozy Powell, great. But there was a lot that was like a little,
That was-
it was on top, it wasn't great
Yeah.
time-wise. So what I used to do was, how would Bernard Purdie play this?
Play this
Or how-
Judas
how
Priest
would-
tune?
Right.
Really?
How would Grady Tate play this?
Really?
And it's an nobody would ever recognize it, but it just puts me in a kind of an area where I want to get more groove into what we're playing. And for vice versa, if I was doing, we used to call them soul in those days, or funk sessions.
Yeah, so,
I would then go, how would Ian Pace play this? Right? And it just kind of a different look on it. It's hard to explain,
That's interesting.
but that's how it would help me kind of devise a groove for this particular pattern, for
Right.
this particular song.
That reminds me of, I heard Dave Grohl say something,
Right.
that the smacks at the beginning of Smells Like Teen Spirit, that pa is that he stole it from the Zap band.
From what?
From the Zap, I think the funk group.
Oh, yeah.
And he said they're just it's exactly what the funk stuff, and
Yes.
nobody knows it's in a and
Exactly.
nobody ever
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
funny thing. Let me
Yeah.
get to a couple more questions. What's your favorite instrument to simply listen to other than drums? Do you have one?
Oh, I love them all. You know,
Moving
what?
on.
And again, I'm very into recording and sound. I have a beautiful stereo system at home. I listen to a lot of vinyl.
Right.
So piano, of course, a beautifully recorded piano. It's great. One of the best recordings still to this day is Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, Chick Corea.
Really? As far as piano sound.
Piano sound, yeah.
Really?
Miroslav Vitius on bass and Roy Haynes on drums.
Oh wow.
And that is beautiful. A lot of the Rudy Van Gelder recordings I love, except he's got a thing about tenor. He makes it blazingly loud.
And it's very crisp.
It's
the,
very
the
crisp.
treble, like
Yeah. I don't know
the
why,
highs.
because it's way louder
Than everything,
than
yeah.
even the alto. Even if you listen to Kind of Blue, when Coltrane comes in, it's like, bloody hell, can you pull that fade in out of it? It's so weird. And he's like, was one of the greatest. He's just recently passed away, actually. Acoustic guitar. There's one of my favorite vinyls is a Raikuda album.
Really?
And I don't remember the other musicians. There's an Indian sitar player,
Really?
and I think 2 percussionists. And it was recorded in Santa Barbara in a church with some heavily modified equipment, analog, no EQ used, straight to stereo.
Really? I'd like to check it out. You said, I'll find it.
It's a double album,
and
it's 45 RPM.
The sitar player.
And
I'll
it's
find it.
Raikuda. I can't remember what the album's called.
Huh.
But in terms of what comes out of the speakers is like,
Wow.
it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. So, I mean, I listen to stuff not just musically. I listen if an album sounds really good.
Not the actual
I'm
recording
like,
itself.
wow.
Regardless of style.
Regardless of style.
Yeah.
And I love, obviously, great voice.
Sure.
I do a lot of vocal recording, so that's one of the things I always try to get right. It's and that depends on the singer.
Sure.
Depends on the microphone you use.
Depends on the studio.
Well, I have my own studio, but I'm still looking for that. I think I found one. Found a really wonderful mic.
combination.
But again, depends on the singer.
Depends
Depends
when it might be
female
good for
or
that
male.
singer.
That's
or not.
another thing. It's an interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of open when it comes. Which is my favorite instrument to listen to. I love it.
Which probably having a career like yours, playing with such a variety of people and styles, you're obviously open to.
Yeah.
You're obviously very open-minded and very and able to adjust to the situation.
Hey, listen to orchestral recordings too.
Absolutely,
I mean,
sure.
that
Some of those
must be
harmonies, and you listen to Raquel, some of those,
beautiful.
absolutely.
Yeah, the dynamics. It's great. Yeah.
What about another strange question? If you could play with any supergroup, anybody of your choice, any generation,
Living or not.
Living or not? do you know?
Yeah.
I know it's. Oh, really? You know, because it's a rough one.
Yeah. One of my favorite composers and guitar players is John McLaughlin.
Okay.
I've always wanted to play with John, and we finally did get to jam together.
All right.
In Mumbai at one of Zakir Hussein's concerts, memorial concerts.
When was this?
And that was
a while ago, or
2014 or 15. It was just a jam, and John was sitting next to me with his, his Strat or whatever he uses. Paul Reed Smith.
He's using the I think.
And through his computer and stuff. He definitely won.
So
John. I never played with Herbie in his band, but we jammed a little bit. I played with Wayne a little bit on that same jam. I'd love to play with Ron Carter. He probably won't have me, but love to play some straight ahead with him. Yeah. I met him here actually.
Oh, wow.
In the Blue Note. He's lovely. Yeah. You get him on the right day. Let me think. Zarvinal. I'm of course a huge Weather Report fan, and I did know Joe, but there was talk of maybe doing a tour with him, but it never transpired.
It's quite the list.
Yeah, I always wish that Jeff and I could have played again together.
Played more.
I did try to put something together, but I don't know what happened. He was last few years of his life. He was very insular, and he was couldn't get hold of him. And I heard this from a lot of people. So I was trying to put together a 40th anniversary of There and Back.
Oh, yeah.
It was Mo, the bass player, was still alive then. He went in the same year.
Really?
Last year.
Really?
It was last year, 2023. 2023. Both went, Jeff in January and Mo in July, I think. So and that's kind of a weird feeling to be in a band where only 50% of you are left.
Right.
Tony, who I saw in November, and myself, But that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, that's for sure. Do you think that it's, I guess it depends. First of all, I don't even know if there's, I mean, I guess there's studio work in Nashville maybe, or maybe if somebody of your caliber has had the experiences you had. But for a new guy getting into like, you know, to wanting to become a session player, I'm not so certain that even exists anymore. But do you think it's better to be a jack of all trades, to be really well-rounded and be able to play rock, jazz, funk, whatever, or to focus? Maybe it's up to the individual person and their passion. I don't know.
I actually think it's a really good thing to play various styles,
Right.
but that's the big difference between Britain and the US.
Mm-hmm.
We had a radio station. We only had 4 radio stations. We had let's say by the time we got to the 70s, we had Radio 1, 2, 3, and 4. We also had Capital, and we had there was I think there was another radio station. We also used to have Radio Caroline, which was a pirate ship radio owned by Ronan O'Reilly. So we'd have one program. There was Radio 1, which was basically pop music,
All right.
and we had Radio 2, which was light music, and that's all we had. So we had to listen to
Whatever they.
James Brown, Metallica,
Right. James Taylor,
and,
whatever.
James Taylor and Carol. You know, it's all in one day.
Yeah.
In the States, you had designated radio stations that played certain types of music.
Yes, we had a classic rock station. We had this station
In
that
every state.
And now it's not like that way, you know. It's
Yeah,
like now,
yeah.
And every state was different. So you get to
Yeah.
Texas and so, you know, you get to the Midwest suddenly. There's
Listening,
all
yeah.
country music.
Right.
You go up, you know, and it depends geographically where you were.
So as a
Absolutely.
musician, a young musician learning to play,
Yeah.
you're listening, instead of listening to this wide variety, you're only listening to this.
Right. And you have to seek it out, I guess.
And as a young session player back in the early 70s, I mean, I had to play all sorts of different sessions. I mean, in one day I could play.
Sure.
I could do, like in the morning, I probably did a jingle in the morning for Maxwell House. I did a session probably I remember doing a session with a guy called Kenny Ball, who used to play with my dad. He's a traditional jazz player. And then the next session was probably a singer-songwriter session.
So it's just...
and then I might have a film date with a full orchestra. I mean, that's what it was like in
and
the
you're
70s.
basically, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're basically learning on the job. It's like trial by fire, basically.
Oh, yeah. And
You know, you're in there and the light goes on and it's like you nail it or you nail it or there's no more work.
You had to read music.
Absolutely.
That was the thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, did you ever hear that story that, there's a story about, I think Luke Luther said, who saved him? I don't know if it was Great, might have been, I think it was Lee Ritenour, and they, guitar 1, guitar 2,
Yes, yeah.
and it was just, he could, you know, and they quickly swapped it out to save him, basically.
Yeah. No, Luke's done it, and then he developed a problem with one of his pedals, so he went down and he's looking at he's trying to figure out.
You played with Lee Sklar, and was he in
Lee Sklar?
Was he in Toto when
Yes,
he was?
yes,
That's right,
2007.
Yeah. And that was the generation of studio musicians, you know.
Yeah.
But I guess with Luke and all, even before with was it Graydon and Dean Parks.
They're still doing it.
They're still doing it.
Still doing it.
They're still.
He does the Grammys every year.
I know. He's got a YouTube. Yep. Well, God bless them that they're. You know, I mean,
it's amazing.
Yeah. I have. What else do we have here? This is it. This is from Quilly, I believe, in the UK. This is another rough one. If you could start your career again, but knowing everything you know now, would you do anything?
Wow. That's. I mean, of course I would. I mean, I love what I do, and I think, although I was younger than, so most of the people I was playing with when I was a kid, they were all 15 to 20 years old.
Right.
So they're now in their 80s. You know, most of them are in like late 70s and 80s. And those, when I came to turn up to do a session, and I was 16 or 17, I got recommended by somebody, but not everybody knew who I was. But it was getting around London pretty quick, and I turned up and I wouldn't know anybody on the session.
And you're the kid, right?
Yeah. And they go, has anybody seen this drummer? His name's Simon Phillips. And I was in the corner going, that would be me. And then all the heads turn around. I'm going, can you read music? I said, yeah. Okay, let's go.
All right.
You know, and we do it. And of course, then it was luckily it was okay. And then then I started turning up to sessions where I started knowing.
You start to know everybody, right?
Ray Cooper, Herbie Flowers, Alan Parker, Caleb Quay. I mean, all these London session guys.
Was the session work in London the same as it was in the U.S. back then?
It was. We just didn't get paid enough.
You didn't get paid the same. They didn't get paid the same as the U.S.
No.
But there was still
God,
a ridiculous amount of work.
1976, I was doing mostly 3 sessions a day.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I had to have 2 drum kits, which were one
Right.
at Olympic, one was at CBS, and then the guy would pick that kit up and take it over to Air. And I mean, it was.
I guess you can't
it was
touch
stunning.
it. You can't touch it because it's union stuff, right? So you can't move this stuff on your own.
Oh yeah, you can.
Oh, you can.
Oh yeah, no, no. It's just I didn't have the energy, didn't have the strength, all the time. Actually, I mean, I was doing it all myself for a while, and somebody said, "Why don't you get Terry to do it?" Who's Terry? Terry's the college guy. I went, "Oh, Terry." And he said, "How many drum kits you got?" Well, we said, "You better have 2 because I've got, I can put another one together." Yeah. So that was it. Luckily, I had 2 Ludwig super beat, super big beat. That's it, big beat outfits. And I think I had 1. I got a second set of cymbals eventually, but yeah. I mean, it was amazing. Life back then
Was
but
you're working hard.
Oh
You're
yeah.
I mean, this is not a job. You're not hanging out. And a lot of it's wait time, isn't it? A lot of it's just sitting there waiting. Because the recordings don't take necessarily all that long if you nail it the first couple times,
Yeah, but not as much as live playing. No, there's a lot of
that's not as much as touring, right? Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean sessions were great because but I did want to break. I didn't want to go on the road. I want to get on the road with a rock band.
Right. How did you mentioned reading a couple times? How did you learn to read? You said you didn't go to school for music or anything.
Well,
was that from your dad or?
Yeah. So my father had a Dixieland band, and I joined his band when I was 12, mainly because I'd grown up playing his music. So even though I was hugely inexperienced, I knew
his stuff.
Knew how to play that 30s kind of dance music, and the kind of musicians that he could have for casual engagements were not the A-level players, because the A-level players would stay in London and do sessions. They were all great. They were amazing. But the guys, in 1969, drummers didn't want to play like Gene Krupa anymore. They wanted to play like Elvin Jones. Right. And it drove my dad nuts, because he grew up with an era of, one of his drummers was Dave Tough in New York. So that's that era.
And you learned to read with that group, or?
No, he insisted that I learn to read. So at 8 years old, I went to drum reading lessons.
Literally, like reading lessons.
Yeah,
not playing, just learning
the
to read.
The teacher who used to play with him only taught basically playing along to a tape machine and a chart. That's how it was. So I learned to read a chart. Now that doesn't mean I was a very good reader
interpreter.
When it comes to, but I knew how to read a chart.
Which is
I mean, and it was all mainly cut common. So everything is like double time.
Right.
So all the phrases would be 8th notes. Now with the advent of rock and roll, we kind of cut the time in half, put it into like 4/4,
right.
and all 16th notes. And when I started getting charts, what the 16th note all the way through? And of course, once I got used to it, I went, oh yeah, because we're kind of half the speed.
Right.
So 3, 4, like that.
Right.
Or cut common 1.
Right.
Done, 2, like that.
Right.
And now we've got 1, 2, and it's all 16ths. So that took a bit of getting used to. But yeah, that's how I learned to read, and got 4 years of experience.
I just realized
on
what
the
time.
road.
Are you okay on time?
We're playing at 6. Yeah, one more question.
Advice to young musicians out there who want to forge a career for themselves, and it's not easy. I don't even, you know, what advice could you offer, if any, to
You know,
musician?
I'm baffled at the business nowadays, because it seems half your time is spent learning an instrument
Yeah.
and a few chords, and half the time is
You gotta learn how to
spent
use social
on
media.
on an iPhone.
Right.
But it is so important now to earn any kind of living from it. You've got to do that.
Right.
That I understand, but I think it's crazy. So it's really difficult. I don't know. I really don't know how they do it.
Also, the level of musicians. You know, you can go to YouTube and find some 7-year-old kid on the other side of the world playing some stuff that you say to yourself, well, what's going on here? So the whole bar is. It seems like the whole bar is being
limited.
Well, yeah,
It's very limited.
Well, they can do it on the, you know.
And what's happening is that technique and facility is taking the most important place in music. And a lot of musicians now I play with, they didn't spend, 3 hours in a studio playing the same take, playing the same groove at different tempos.
Over and over.
We would play, we do like maybe 40, 50 takes of a tune, the same tune. Let's try it in a different key. Right, let's try it slower. Let's try, that, and it's all this playing like together as a unit, playing a groove for that length of time is, I don't know, it's just such a different thing. Now it just seems this is, there's this Italian guitar player
I know.
who plays like
he's ridiculous.
And it's like, wow, and he's great. And apparently he's a really good player. Matteo
Mancuso.
Yeah,
He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know you gotta go. Are the drums are still evolving the way guitars are, with guitar tones and 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars?
Actually, no. I think actually drums are going backwards. Nobody has a great sound anymore.
Really?
It's all very generic. I can't tell the difference between players anymore.
And you used to be able to.
You used to be able to
right
tell,
away.
Oh, that's Lenny White.
Right,
that's
right,
Billy.
right.
That's Elvin. No, it's so generic, and nobody seems to know how to tune drums anymore.
And the kit itself is also just kind of not.
It's become a very like the 4-piece thing is kind of in vogue. I mean, I'm like an old dinosaur with my kit.
What do you have? How many pieces you have?
I don't know. I keep losing count. Get too old.
I'll let you go.
No, it's got 7 toms, 2 bass drums, 3 snare drums, gong drum.
I lost
4
already.
octavans, something like that. But no, it's just weird how it's become kind of drum tones are like very generic and.
You said tuning. You said also tuning was not.
Yeah, people are not tuning the drums properly.
Really? And putting out records.
All the tom-toms sound like this. It's hilarious.
Is that a new thing? Is that like
It's been around for a long time,
Really?
actually. Yeah, it's such a shame.
I mean, it shouldn't be for lack of knowledge.
No.
I wonder. Huh.
Sound is so much part of any instrument.
Absolutely.
To have a tone, and for an individual to have a tone, just
you,
like a guitar player. Just
and
like
you say that's Mike Stern. Hey, that's this guy. That's that guy. You right away you hear
exactly.
And that's the way it should be, because they have their own voice. And it's like when you call your friend on the phone. Hey, what's up? He knows who it is right away.
Same with the horn player.
Absolutely. Any instrument.
To me, that's really important.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
All right,
thank you.
Pleasure.
I appreciate
Pleasure.
it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Once again, Michael Kaplan from the American Guitar Academy at the Blue Note with Simon Phillips. Thanks again.
Thank you.